10 Sinister Alaskan Horror Stories Revealed. Discover the spine-chilling haunted secrets. The darkness hung like a heavy curtain, suffocating the air around Sarah's trailer in the Alaskan outback. The long nights wrapped her family in a sinister silence. Her children, Jake and Lily, were restless, sensing the unease that crept in from the cold. Whispers of the bone collector, a figure said to lead families into the cold embrace of the unknown, made their way through the thin walls, curling around Sarah like a frigid ghost. She could feel it in her bones, the chill that seeped under her skin with each passing hour, feeding off her growing dread. That night, after another exhausting shift at the gas station, Sarah's fingers trembled as she rummaged through her purse. Slumped in the chair with exhaustion pulling at her eyelids, she pulled out a crumpled letter that she didn't remember picking up. As she unfolded it, a strange chill settled over her. The words seemed to slip off the page, whispering warnings of the bone collector, promising misfortune and fear. Dismissing it as local folklore, she tried to shake the unease. Clutching the letter, she could hardly hear Jake's restless murmurs and Lily's soft sobs filtering through the dark. It was too quiet. Then she saw it: fresh, muddy footprints leading up to the trailer door, unmistakable against the pure white snow. A chill ran down her spine. Sarah's heart raced as the shadows danced in her periphery. Her thoughts spiraled as she recalled the whispers, talks of the bone collector lingering in her neighbors' voices, stories wrapped in fear. But how much was truth? Fear gripped her mind. Something was wrong. Before the panic could grip her throat, she resolved to seek help. The sheriff, surely, his uniform would evoke a sense of safety. But when she reached the station, all she found was a hollow man with weary eyes. "Just stories," he muttered, and that night, whispers became screams in her head. Doubt engulfed her. The darkness outside felt alive. The night slipped away in a blur of anxiety. Jake's eyes darkened with fatigue, and Lily clung to her like a life raft in the sea of shadowy fears. Their neighbors moved in hushed tones, curtains shut tight, breaths held. Paranoia crept in, urging her to protect her family from dangers lurking unseen, yet always present, close enough to make her skin crawl. As Sarah paced the floor, seeking relief in movement, a fleeting shadow caught her eye. It danced just beyond the trees, a figure watching, waiting. It was too late for folklore. Reality seeped into her existence. The bone collector wasn't just a story, it wasn't just the cold playing tricks on her tired mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the snow continued to fall, blanketing the footprints that had led into the woods, Sarah's heart thundered. Each passing moment felt like a countdown, and she feared that time was running out. What did that figure want? Was it already too late? The flickering lights inside the trailer buzzed like warning sirens in a storm breaching the stillness outside. With her breath hitching in her throat, Sarah stood at the window. What if the bone collector's reach extended far beyond mere tales? The shadows outside seemed to stretch, coiling tighter around them, testing her resolve. Could she save her children before the darkness consumed them all? The wind howled around the trailer like a feral beast, biting at the walls and swirling the snow into flurries that whipped across the night sky. Sarah felt it burrow deep into her, settling in her bones, amplifying the dread twisting in her gut. The shadow she'd seen earlier lurked somewhere outside, its intent shrouded in darkness. Jake and Lily moved restlessly in their beds, oblivious to the grim watch the cold wilderness had over them. "Mommy?" Jake's small voice broke the silence, cracking with fear. She turned to him, forcing a brave smile. "Everything's okay, sweetheart. Just a big wind outside," she replied, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. She could see the flickering light from the lamp casting eerie shapes against the walls, as if the shadows themselves were conspiring against her, but was it the wind? Just as the thought crossed her mind, a soft thump sounded on the trailer roof. Panic gripped her. Not wind. Something alive. The hairs on her arms stood on end, the chill spreading through her skin and pooling in her stomach. She tiptoed to the window, heart racing, peering through the glass. Nothing, just the vast emptiness of snow-laden trees and the swirling blizzard. Leaning closer, she strained to listen, trying to separate the noise of the storm from the shadows whispering through her thoughts. Outside, the silence was deep and waiting, wrapping her in a layer of growing foreboding. Suddenly, Jake's voice flared up again. "Mommy. I'm scared." The urgency in his tone snapped her from her daze. She turned, trying to push away the growing sense of doom. "I'm right here, honey." But dread wormed itself deeper. Taking a deep breath, she reached for her phone, considering if calling anyone would even matter. The signal was only faint here, and the sheriff's dismissal replayed in her mind, so dismissive of her reality. A loud crack echoed from the roof, and her gut twisted painfully as she grabbed the flashlight, the beam piercing through the darkness. "Stay in your beds," she instructed Jake and Lily, their wide eyes mirroring her own fear as she stepped towards the door. The sturdy frame felt flimsy against the hidden threat lurking outside. With a quick twist, she opened the door just a crack, peering into the night. The wind rushed in, biting at her face, urging her to retreat. But in that moment, a shadow shifted near the edge of the woods. "Mommy, don't!" Lily screeched, rooted in her blanket. "It's okay." Sarah's voice was shaky. She couldn't explain why she felt an unyielding pull toward it, a draw she couldn't quite understand. As the shape continued shifting, twisting in and out of the trees, she raised the flashlight, illuminating the area. The beam illuminated the white snow, but her heart dropped. The ground was pristine, untouched, save for their own tracks leading to a creeping silhouette now flickering in and out of sight. There was no sign of the footprints that had haunted her earlier, and that absence was a scream in itself. Had it been an illusion? Had they vanished? Circle her thoughts, the gnawing uncertainty clawed at her. Had the bone collector already begun his work? Then, without warning, a soft, raspy laugh drifted through the icy air, curling Sarah's insides like a snake. It wrapped around her heart, squeezing tight. The figure slipped fully into view, revealing nothing but darkness, a void draped in shadow, too unnatural to comprehend. Panic surged as she slammed the door, cringing under the weight of the silence that followed. What was that? Jake's eyes shimmered with tears, igniting the motherly instinct to protect. "I don't know," Sarah whispered, her pulse racing. The night pressed heavy against them, a pressure that felt like it could crush her. But she wasn't safe yet. A thumping echoed against the walls, every beat matched her racing heart. The bone collector was out there, and he was coming for them. She had to find a way to escape the horror. But how could she save her children from an entity that thrived on despair? As shadows pressed closer, she wondered if it was already too late. If the darkness had already claimed their souls, what choices would she have to make to keep them alive? The pounding grew louder, a merciless drumbeat that rattled in her bones. Sarah gripped the flashlight, her knuckles white, praying it wouldn't flicker and fail. She pressed her back against the door, feeling its cold surface against her skin as if it too could betray her. Jake's whimper broke the tension, pulling her gaze from the door. "Mommy, please. I'm scared." His small form quivered beneath the covers, eyes wide with fright. Holding the light steady, Sarah squeezed close to him, her heart racing. "I know, honey. I'm here." But even as she spoke, she wondered how much longer that would be true. The sound changed, morphing into a scraping, like nails dragging across metal. Whatever was outside was trying to break in. She could almost feel its hunger seeping through the walls, an oppressive darkness that pressed against her, wrapping its cold fingers around her throat. Then, silence. A void swallowed the storm, leaving only the sound of her own breath shallow and quick. It felt like the calm before a storm hit, each heartbeat a countdown. "Look," Mommy Lily whispered, her voice trembling. She pointed toward the window. Sarah turned slowly, dread coloring her movements. There it was again, the dark shape flitting between the trees. It had come closer, details beginning to resolve in the beam of the flashlight. "Stay close," Sarah whispered, panic prickling her skin. She moved the beam toward the silhouette, frozen in place. It seemed to watch them, its darkness consuming the dim light, reflecting nothing but malevolence and hunger. Lily gasped, and Sarah's heart dropped. "Don't look, sweetie," she hissed. But it was too late. The moment Lily's gaze locked onto the figure, Sarah felt a pull, a connection formed not through will but through sheer horror. The laugh returned, that sickly rasp echoing through the stillness, chilling Sarah's blood. "They're fragile, just like the snowflakes. Mommy, make it stop," Jake whimpered, burying his face into her side. The weight of his fear pressed against her, layering even more panic over the scene unfolding outside. "Please, let us go," she murmured, though she knew the bone collector didn't care. He thrived on their fear, spun it into a web to ensnare them. The stories had been right. Beneath the beauty of the wilderness lurked an insatiable predator. In a desperate move, Sarah grabbed the door, intent on barring it with all her weight. But before she could shove it closed, something clanged against the metal, sending vibrations through her fingers. The handle rattled, twisting with an otherworldly strength, as if something on the other side sought a way in. "Mommy, it's trying to get in," Jake screamed. She rushed to the window again, the flashlight trembling in her hands. There was so much darkness, so many shadows. She could feel them reaching for her, hungry tendrils of fear wrapping tighter around her chest, squeezing her breath away. Behind her, the laughter grew louder, fusing with the wind outside, a cacophony of horror that made her heart race. She turned, eyes wide, but there was nothing there. Just the empty, dark space behind the door. "Mommy, what do we do?" Lily's voice cracked, her tone an agonizing plea. "Just stay close," she whispered back, trying to calm herself as much as them. She needed to think clearly, had to find a way out, but all she felt was dread, smothering hope with every thump resonating against the walls. There was only one thing she knew for sure: a decision had to be made. They couldn't stay trapped here, they had to break free. But what if the darkness outside promised safety only to swallow them whole? A sudden crash erupted into the quiet, the reinforced door shuddering under the impact. "Mommy!" Her children screamed together, their voices piercing the icy nightmare. In that moment, fate laid in her hands. Could she face the bone collector? Or would the shadows claim her family first? A flicker of hope sparked as Sarah lunged toward the kids, ready to fight for their lives. But the darkness loomed relentlessly, whispering promises of despair. What sacrifices would she make to protect her children? What darkness was creeping deeper into her soul? The door buckled again, the ancient wood bending as if in pain. Sarah's heart thudded wildly. She was no longer sure if it was the storm that rattled the walls or the sheer terror coursing through her veins. "Don't move," she hissed, her voice a shaky whisper as she crouched low near her children. They pressed tight against her, warmth and trust pooling in one desperate embrace, yet feeling so fragile against the chill of impending doom. The bone collector had an insatiable appetite. She could almost hear him breathing, a heavy, stuttering sound that mirrored her own panic. Desperate thoughts flickered. Should they escape through the window? What if they ran into the dark outside? Would it be worse than staying here? "Stay together, whatever happens," Sarah breathed, eyes darting around, searching for a glimmer of hope. But hope was a distant star in this nightmare, one that seemed to dim with every muffled thud against the door. A soft scrape met her ears like a whisper, a secret shared between shadows. It came again, this time accompanied by a guttural panting that clawed at her sanity. The bone collector was right there, behind the door. He was breathing, watching, waiting. "Mommy." Jake whimpered, his small voice cracking with raw fear. Lily trembled beside him, clutching her brother's arm tighter, her eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. A wave of protectiveness surged through Sarah, stronger than her own dread. She would die before letting them fall into that darkness. "Please. Just leave us alone," she shouted, surprised even to herself at the sudden burst of defiance. The room held its breath, silence enveloping them once more, pulling taut like a bowstring. Then, the screech of wood splintering filled the air. Sarah's heart lurched. The doorframe cracked, splinters gleaming like teeth in the dim light. And then something dark slipped through a gap, a shadow coiling like smoke. Instinctively, Sarah grabbed the kids, pulling them behind her. The flashlight flickered, casting eerie shapes across the room. The laughter came again, more sinister, echoed by the wind howling outside. "You can't hold on forever, fragile ones." With a sudden rush, the door swung open. The bone collector stood silhouetted in the doorway, his shape an amalgamation of shadow and malice. His eyes, glowing pits of hunger, fixed on them, revealing nothing but the abyss. "Mommy!" Jake screamed, pressing closer. "Run!" Sarah shouted, adrenaline flooding her body. Without thinking, she charged towards the staircase that led to the attic, a narrow, cramped space that might offer some refuge. The dimness clawed at them, desperate shadows reaching with clawed fingers, but she pushed forward, dragging her children behind her. As they stumbled up the stairs, something brushed against Sarah's arm, a gust of cold air, sharper than ice. She hardly paused to glance back, fear outweighing logic. They flew into the attic, its silence swallowing them like the yawning maw of a beast. She slammed the door behind them, barely locking it before Jake's trembling hands reverberated against her side. "What now, Mommy?" Sarah swept the flashlight around their temporary sanctuary, revealing dusty boxes and forgotten treasures. The walls felt close and suffocating, like U-turn tunnels. She tore at one of the boxes, searching for anything useful, desperately grasping at hope. Then a sound caught her attention, the soft scrape of claws against wood. The bone collector was following them, relentless and hungry. He wouldn't stop until he had them. She froze. There was no escape here. What would she do? A heartbreaking realization settled in. This attic was not a refuge, it was a trap. Then the attic door trembled under a heavy force, the sound scraping like nails across chalkboard. Mommy Lily's voice quaked, a haunting melody of innocence against the encroaching horror. And in that moment, Sarah felt it, the creeping dread of despair slicing through the last shreds of her resolve. She knew what was coming, and as the door began to give way, she weighed the impossible choices resting in her hands. What would Sarah sacrifice for her children? What would she allow to be unleashed into the night? And as the stout door splintered again, she whispered into the dark, "Please let it end." But deep within, she knew this was only the beginning. The door splintered with a violent crack, shards flying inward like daggers. Sarah's breath quickened. The bone collector's shadow loomed larger, the darkness stretching toward them as if hungry for their fear. "Hold on tight," she ordered, clutching her kids to her chest. They huddled close, their small bodies shaking, mirroring the tremors that racked her own. "We need to find a way out." The attic seemed to close in around them, the air thick with dust and dread. Sarah scanned their surroundings frantically. Old trunks and boxes overflowed with memories long forgotten, but she wasn't here for nostalgia. She needed a means of escape. Another violent push against the door sent a jolt of panic coursing through her veins. The bone collector was relentless, each shuddering groan of the door a foreboding reminder of the brute force just beyond their flimsy barrier. "Mommy!" Jake's voice quavered, eyes wide with terror. "What is going to happen?" She swallowed hard, fighting the rising tide of hopelessness. "We'll be okay," she lied, forcing her voice to stay steady, but inside, her mind raced. What was the best decision? Stay and fight or jump into the unknown below? Look! Lily pointed, her finger trembling toward a dusty old trunk in the corner. Sunlight peeked through the small attic window, illuminating it just enough to reveal a rusty latch. Maybe it has something. Without a second thought, Sarah dashed to the trunk, kneeling beside it as fear thrummed like a heartbeat around her. She fumbled with the latch, desperate fingers shaking. The door creaked again, another powerful blow sending vibrations shivering through the floorboards. "Mommy!" Jake yelled, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I don't want to go. I'm scared." The latch finally released with a soft click. Throwing the lid open, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Inside lay an assortment of oddities, old clothes, winter gear, but also something that sent a chill racing down her spine: a knife. This was no ordinary knife. The blade shimmered with an unholy light, jagged and glistening as if it had tasted blood. "Take this," she said, her voice shaking yet steady as she handed it to Jake. "If he gets in, you protect your sister. You hear me? You fight for her." Lily's breathing came in short gasps as she gripped the edges of the box, peering curiously at the strange blade covered in dark stains, and then, the door finally gave way. The force of the bone collector surged into the attic with a bellow that rattled the walls, sending dust clouds billowing upwards as the door slammed against the wall. His twisted figure flooded into their sanctuary, blotting out the remnants of light. "Mommy!" Jake cried again, and in that moment, the world fell silent save for the echo of their heartbeats. The bone collector stood hulking and grotesque, the air around him shifting, heavy with malice. His eyes, two pitiless embers, smoldered in the shadows, filled with a ravenous hunger. "You thought you could escape me?" he taunted, the echo of his voice curling around them like smoke. Sarah edged back, nudging her children behind her. "Get behind me," she commanded, holding the flashlight as a shield. "You didn't think we would let you take us that easily, did you?" With renewed determination, she raised the flashlight and flicked it back on, the beam illuminating the horror that was him. "Stay together. We fight together." But in the exact moment she steeled herself to make a stand, an unholy shriek ripped through the attic, sending tremors through the floor. The bone collector lunged, a shadow blurring toward them. Panic surged anew as she realized they were outmatched. The knife glinted in her hand. Was it the answer? Or was it merely another trap? What had she gotten them into? This wasn't just survival, it was a desperate gamble against a dark past that refused to stay buried. And as the bone collector closed in, a murmur broke free from Sarah's lips, fading into the darkness. "What do we do now?" Something wicked grinned from the shadows, and the answer was only the beginning of their deepest fears. The bone collector's distorted figure swirled against the dim light, his grotesque mouth stretching into a gaping grin. Sarah felt bile rising in her throat as she clutched the knife tighter. Heart pounding, she reminded herself to breathe. Beside her, Jake's trembling hand gripped the knife's hilt, eyes unwavering but fear-stricken. Lily clutched her brother's waist, her small body a quaking leaf amid the storm. With a cacophonous roar, the bone collector charged. Shadows enveloped him, flowing like liquid night. Time slowed to a crawl. Sarah had only seconds to act. "Step forward. Now!" she shouted, pushing Jake ahead and instinctively blocking Lily with her body. The creature's breath brushed against her, rancid and hot, as if the depths of decay lingered in its core. The beam of her flashlight flickered, threatening to die, casting frantic shadows across the walls. Just as the bone collector loomed closer, she swung the knife, a desperate slash aimed at the monstrous entity. The blade met air, missing its mark. It was terrifyingly fast, leaping out of reach, moving like a phantom. Sarah's heart dropped. Each second lost was another step closer to doom. The bone collector halted, eyes narrowing. "You think you can stop me with that?" it hissed, voice low and seeping with menace. The shadows thickened, and Sarah felt a tightening grip on her chest. "You're wrong." She shifted, her voice rising with defiance. "We're not afraid of you." With that declaration, she took a step forward, courage swelling in her chest like a tide pushing back against an angry ocean. But her body tensed, instinct screaming for her to run. That moment of confidence was interrupted by the return of the bone collector's shriek, an unearthly sound that raked against her sanity, spreading terror like wildfire. Lily screamed, hands clamped over her ears, and Jake flinched, eyes wide. "Get out!" Sarah shouted, adrenaline fueling her. She twisted back toward the trunk, praying that it held more than old relics of the past. Rummaging through clothes, her fingertips brushed something small and cold, a charm, silver and foreign, with intricate carvings smeared with age. Was it a trinket of protection? As the bone collector unleashed another thunderous roar, Sarah swung the flashlight toward him, illuminating his body. In that blinding light, the scars and tattoos etched into his skin became clearer, each marking a testimony of dark deeds, cries of the damned. "Look!" Jake cried, pointing. "Mommy, is that?" The creature recoiled, shadows swirling violently as it flared in the light. "You think you can bind me with pathetic lights and tricks?" But in that moment of unfathomable dread, something inside of Sarah ignited. "We're stronger than you think. We are one." With each word, she felt the energy surge through her. Pressing the charm against her chest, she chanted what was barely a whisper, words lost in the chaos but carrying the weight of hope. Then the attic shook, and the air turned electric. Light flickered more violently, pushing back the shadows momentarily, and the bone collector's form faltered, recognition dancing in his eyes. The fear evaporated into boldness. "Stand!" she commanded, raising the knife, and the energy around her erupted in a blinding flash. The children, seemingly in tune with their mother's resolve, moved forward, uniting with her spirit. Together, they felt tangible empowerment entwining with familial love, a force capable of transforming despair into defiance. But before the bone collector could fully retreat, a sinister grin spread across its face, a flash of malevolence. "You cannot fight what you do not understand," it snarled, causing the shadows to ripple and pulse like a living entity. So many secrets. It reached for them again, its claws extending into the blinding light. With the charm pulsating in her grip, Sarah realized what she must do next. "We need to believe," she urged her children, as she prepared for a final stand against the darkness. But as the room spun and walls shimmered with uncertainty, she wondered, could their newfound strength truly overpower the darkness, or was this just the beginning of a nightmare far worse than they ever imagined? The air crackled, thick with tension as Sarah, Jake, and Lily braced themselves for whatever hellish thing was about to unfold. The bone collector was no longer just a figure of nightmares, it had become an embodiment of their worst fears, a living legend brought to twisted life. The charm pulsed in Sarah's grip, seemingly attuned to the chaos surrounding them. "Hold on tight," she shouted, both a command and a plea. They moved together, tightly knit against the onslaught of shadows surging forward like a tidal wave, propelled by the malevolent force of the creature. Sarah's heart raced, each beat matching the frantic rhythm of their escape. Jake's voice trembled, "Mom, what do we do? He's gonna get us. We're stronger than him." She shouted back, determination flooding her words. Yet doubt crept in, twisting her gut like a serpent. Could they really stand against this nightmare? Even as her resolve sparked, the bone collector's laughter echoed through the attic, dark and haunting, mixing with the howling wind outside. Suddenly, the charm in her hand blazed hotter, illuminating the room with an otherworldly light. Shadows recoiled, drawing back as if scalded. "We must use it," Sarah shouted, plunging the charm into the air like a spear aimed at the beast. She could feel its power, it was like grasping the last thread of hope in a storm. The bone collector snarled, a guttural twist of rage mixed with confusion. "Foolish mortals! You cannot wield what you do not comprehend." It lunged forward, claws extended, gnarled and grotesque, drawing nearer with every second. Jake, galvanized by their mother's strength, swung the knife as if it were an extension of himself. "Stay back!" The creature's eyes widened, captivated by the sudden intensity. It hesitated, its twisted limbs freezing mid-lunge. Now! Together! Sarah yelled. She pressed her palm against the charm, chanting louder, summoning whatever energy it contained. The children joined her voice, a chorus of defiance mingled with raw terror. As the words echoed around them, the attic began twisting, warping under a supernatural force none could comprehend. The walls seemed to pulse, an eerie heartbeat matching Sarah's own racing pulse. Glimmering light spilled from the charm and erupted into a blinding burst, illuminating the beast and the room in sharp clarity, but the bone collector wasn't finished. You think you are free? You think you've won? You don't know the depths of the darkness. The shadows around him thickened, flowing like black ink, reaching out to tear apart the light. Each syllable emerged like frozen daggers, resonating with absolute certainty. Fight it! Sarah roared, clenching the charm tighter, feeling the heat seep into her skin and ignite something deeper, something she hadn't realized she possessed. The light flickered violently, the air thickened, swirling like a cyclone, and Sarah felt an invisible thread tethering her to the haunting entity. The bone collector advanced, claws razor-sharp, intent on reclaiming his dominion. Suddenly, a memory washed over Sarah, a fleeting image of her children's laughter before the darkness fell. This ends now. She screamed, channeling every ounce of love, fear, and hope into that moment. With a final surge, the charm blazed, a sun in the dark, a beacon of warmth in the overwhelming chill. Light exploded outward, pushing back the shadows, wrapping around the bone collector, locking it within a prism of brilliance. The creature howled, a sound ripe with agony and fury, as the very essence of the darkness began to fracture. Sarah felt a pulse of victory, but it was short-lived. The world around them faltered, the light beaming brighter, yet something in the bone collector's grin hinted at deeper horrors. Secrets are never truly buried. It screamed as the light began to shatter, sending tremors through the walls. The attic quaked, succumbing to chaos, and then, silence. The aftermath lay heavy, the air pregnant with uncertainty. As the darkness pooled at the corners, Sarah realized they hadn't truly won. Shadows flickered, whispering secrets that slithered into the crevices of her mind. "Mom?" Jake's quivering voice broke her reverie. But before she could answer, a distant sound echoed soft, seductive, beckoning them closer. A new fear surged. What had they unleashed? "Stay close," Sarah ordered, fear trickling back, but as they huddled together, a thought crept in: what if the real horror had just begun? A haze settled in the attic, the remnants of the brilliant light fading into a dull, pulsing darkness. Shadows slithered along the walls, whispering insults and threats, their voices like distant screams echoing in Sarah's mind. She clutched her children closer, her heart racing and her breath quickening. What was that sound? Lily whispered, her wide eyes darting around the dim, cluttered space. Fear clung to her words, sticky and suffocating. I don't know," Sarah breathed, trying to steady her voice. The soft call lingered, taunting them, wrapping around their throats like a noose. It was alluring but filled with dread, promising answers they weren't ready to hear. "Mom, we need to get out of here," Jake whimpered, gripping the knife tightly, knuckles pale as he scanned the room. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shapes, transforming familiar items into grotesque figures. "No. We can't leave," Sarah insisted, each word strained with desperation. "We have to finish this. Somehow, we have to." A crash echoed through the attic, the sound of wood splintering. The source was a shadow that had fallen, unseen in the chaos, revealing a dark doorway hidden behind a pile of boxes. The energy shifted dangerously, as if the air itself held its breath. "An exit!" Lily exclaimed, pointing, but something about her voice was both cracked and hopeful. "Or a trap," Sarah murmured, dread creeping in. She could feel the bone collector lurking, gathering strength from their fear, eager to toy with their dread. "Mom!" Jake's voice quivered, panic breaking through. "What if it's waiting for us? Sarah took a deep breath and swallowed hard. We don't have other choices. We can't just stay here. We have to know. She nodded toward the shadowy entryway, her heart hammering against her ribs like a prisoner seeking freedom. Hand in hand, they moved toward the dark, each step heavy with uncertainty. The charm still pulsed in Sarah's palm, a remnant of their earlier victory or perhaps a dangerous lure. As they approached the door, the whispers grew louder, swirling around them, snippets of forgotten truths clawing for attention. Stay together, Sarah commanded, her voice gaining strength. They stepped into the doorway, the chill in the air leaving goosebumps on their skin, a stark contrast to the warmth of their earlier light. Inside, the space was claustrophobic, crammed with boxes and debris, draped in shadows. The faint smell of decay twisted in the air, tugging at their senses. It felt like entering the lair of something unearthly, something waiting. Suddenly, the charm flared bright again, illuminating the hidden alcove, revealing something they wished they never saw. A wall covered in photographs. Polaroids of children, some familiar, some not, frozen in horrific expressions, terror etched into their faces. Each image caught a moment before darkness consumed them. Lily gasped, fingers trembling as she pointed at one photo in particular. Look! That's Tommy from school. No. Sarah's throat was dry, fear snowballing as she stepped closer. How does it have this? The shadows thickened, coiling around the edges of the room as the bone collector's laugh echoed once more, chilling to the bone. You wander into my domain, seeking truths never meant for you, it taunted. You are bound here by your own choices. With a flash, the room shifted, the photographs melting away like candle wax, leaving a chilling void of darkness. Sarah felt it wrap around them, tightening like a vice. Mom, I can't breathe. Jake cried, struggling against invisible hands gripping him. No. Sarah shrieked, desperation flooding her as she unleashed the charm, a burst of light pouring forth. But the shadows bent and twisted, eating the glow with insatiable hunger. Your light is nothing without its source. The bone collector snarled, its form looming larger, darker. You think you can vanquish me? The darkness will always return. As the darkness began to swallow them whole, the charm pulsed one last time, a desperate flare against the encroaching black. Run! Sarah screamed, but the path behind them vanished into shadow. The whispers morphed into terrible laughter, the sound reverberating against the walls, knowing they were trapped, lost in a nightmare, and then everything plunged into an abyss. Would there be a way out, or were they destined to remain forever entwined in the horrors lurking just beyond their sight? Darkness wrapped around them like a living blanket, seeping into their skin and pulling them deeper into despair. Sarah could faintly see the outline of her children, their faces twisted in fear, but the shadows warped her vision. The bone-chilling laughter filled her ears, mocking her for daring to challenge the void. Mom! Jake gasped, his voice crackling like static. It's everywhere. Lily pressed against Sarah, sobbing quietly. The sound seemed to echo, creating ripples in the darkness that closed in on them. I want to go home, please. I know, baby, Sarah whispered, panic clawing at her throat. But we can't give up. We'll find a way. She gripped the charm tightly, wishing for some glimmer of what it had given them before, but all she felt was futility. Then, against the pitch black, a flicker of light sparked to life, a pale glow wavering in the distance. Hope surged for just a moment, and Sarah felt her heart race with a new urgency. She stepped towards it, dragging her children along. The glow pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Stay close. She warned, feeling the darkness wrapping around her like icy tendrils, trying to pull her back. The laughter rose again, louder, as if the shadows themselves were alive, relishing the fear coursing through her veins. Mom! What if it's a trap? Jake's voice trembled, uncertainty creeping back in. Then we fight, Sarah replied fiercely, though her own heart quaked. They pushed through the claustrophobic shadows, determined to reach that flickering light, but as they drew closer, the shape of the glow began to shift, morphing from a beacon of hope to something grotesque. It was a doorway, but not just any doorway. Blackened wood twisted into a grim arch, the glow seeping from within, pulsating in rhythm akin to a sinister heartbeat. Written in what looked like blood twisting in and out of the wood were named scribbles of children lost to time. "Don't look!" Sarah shouted, but the sight had already penetrated Lily's fragile psyche. "Look! Look!" The girl stepped forward, as if hypnotized. Suddenly, the air hummed ominously, and the glow erupted into a blinding flash. Shadows writhed, forming a shape of indescribable horror, a creature emerging from the depths of blackness itself. It towered over them, a silhouette drenched in malevolence, its eyes burning like embers in a hollow face. "You come seeking answers," the bone collector rasped, its voice like brittle leaves crushing underfoot. "Answers come with a price. What will you sacrifice?" Jake faltered, his grip loosening on the knife. "Mom, I can't silence." Sarah screamed. She seized the charm in her palm, feeling its warmth wane under the weight of despair. "What do you want from us?" The figure slithered closer, shadows caressing its form like loyal pets. "Your light, your hope, it is my feast. Feed me, or be consumed." "No. I want tea." Sarah shouted defiantly, grounding herself in fierce determination. The icy tendrils tightened, threatening to smother her. "I will not lose my children." In that moment, the charm surged again, emitting a desperate flash that illuminated the darkness. The shade hissed, recoiling. "You think your relic can save you?" "Mom!" Jake's cry resonated, breaking her focus. Lily stood frozen, eyes wide, as the shadows danced around them, hypnotizing her. Sarah's heart plummeted, she couldn't let them succumb. "Together!" Sarah howled, lifting the charm high. "We can beat this!" But just as they joined hands, the shadows thickened around them, swirling violently, encasing them in a churning storm of darkness. The last flickering light dimmed, swallowed whole by the nightmare that now enveloped them. As emptiness pressed in, Sarah screamed, a sound choked by fear and desperation. Rushing darkness was all they knew now. But deep in the murky void, Sarah felt the faintest pulse of hope. Was it the charm? Was it something inside her? "Hold on." She mumbled fiercely, not knowing if it was directed at herself or her children. "We'll find a way." And just then the shadows shifted, opening a new abyss. Would this be an escape or simply a deeper trap waiting to ensnare them? A sudden rush of icy wind tore through the darkness, shattering the suffocating silence as Sarah's scream echoed off invisible walls. "What is happening?" she gasped, gripping her children's hands tighter. Shadows twisted menacingly around them, pulsating as if alive, and an overwhelming dread filled the air. It felt like the abyss was alive, clawing at their sanity. "Mom! I can't see anything!" Jake cried, his small voice strained and breaking. Lily's grip loosened slightly, and panic rose in Sarah's chest. "Stay close!" she shouted, forcing the words through the panic clenching her throat. She could feel the darkness curling in like fingers wrapped around her chest, squeezing tightly, insisting they surrender. But in this heart of darkness, she felt a flicker of resilience, a kindling of hope deep within her soul. "Remember why we're here," Sarah commanded, summoning every ounce of strength. "We're together, and that makes us strong." In that moment, the noise stopped. The shadows froze, and a strange stillness swept over them. A pinprick of light flickered back to life, a radiant globe pulsating softly as if answering the call of her determination. "Mommy, it's there." Jake pointed, his voice anxious yet excited. The orb brightened, illuminating their surroundings, the darkness receding just a little. Sarah led the way through the shadowy streets to the source of the light, hearts pounding in unison. "Keep moving. We can't let it take us. The darkness seemed to swirl behind them, but with every step forward, they felt the warmth strengthening. As they approached, the light revealed a door, its wood entwined in glimmers that fought against the shadows as if alive. Inscribed into its frame were familiar names. No! They can't have them! Sarah yelled, shaking as tears streamed down her cheeks. What do we do? Lily asked, trembling. No matter what, Sarah hesitated, glancing back at the growing shadows that seemed to breathe behind them, forcing her to look directly at the children. No matter what happens, we stick together. We fight for each other. With the charm blazing like a beacon, they reached the door. This is our chance, Sarah declared, pressing against the ancient wood. The moment she touched it, an electric shock coursed through her fingers, heat pulsed in her chest, and the door trembled as if it sensed their resolve. Together! Sarah rallied. They squeezed each other's hands, channeling their energy into the charm. With a final breath, she shoved the door open, stepping into the blinding light. Inside, the warmth washed over them, scattering the last remnants of fear. The darkness screamed behind them, turmoil raging as they stepped deeper into the sanctuary beyond. The threshold shielded them, cutting away the chaos. Time seemed to slow, enveloped in a cocoon of brilliance. What is this place? Jake whispered in awe. Home, Sarah breathed, amazed at the expanse around them. The light glimmered gently, illuminating their surroundings with vibrant colors, every hue reminiscent of safety and love. Flowers bloomed in the corners, their sweet scents mingling with warmth, drawing them in, and then she understood. This was not just a haven, it was a manifestation of their love and their triumph over fear. Mommy, look! Lily pointed ahead, her eyes wide with wonder. Those are the children, the lost ones. Sarah's heart surged as they spotted familiar faces, children releasing echoes of laughter resonating through the air. Each face was glowing, free from the shadows that had haunted them. They beckoned, beams of light intertwining in playful dances, each radiating joy. Together! Sarah urged, linking her arms with her children, moving forward into the heart of light. Every step lifted the dark weight that had pressed against them since the beginning. They twirled, echoes of laughter growing in intensity, filling Sarah's spirit with warmth. We did it! Jake beamed, laughter spilling forth, mingling with their joyful cries. As the shadows of the bone collector faded into whispers, chasing only remnants of what had once been, Sarah felt the weight of fear lift. It had not been easy, but they had conquered, stringing together love, resilience, and ultimately, the power of family. We're finally free, she whispered, engulfed in warmth, as it embraced them tighter than the shadows ever could, and with that, they erupted into laughter, a sound twinkling like stars against the night sky. They had fought the darkness. They had won. As they embraced this new light, Sarah knew they were ready to face whatever came next, because love, true love, was the ultimate shield against any darkness. As the screen fades to black, remember to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and support the channel like never before. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions to this spine-chilling conclusion. What did you think of their journey? And for those who need to hear this story, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep the light shining.